It is indeed an honor for me to be here today representing the government of Sri Lanka following the historic presidential election that took place in my country 48 days ago on the 8th of January 2015. As this August Assembly would be aware, 81.52% of the registered voters in Sri Lanka from all parts of the island, including the former conflict-affected areas in the northern and eastern provinces, exercised their franchise at this election. In fact, it was the largest ever voter turnout in the country's history, and this was despite calls from some both within and outside the country to boycott the election. The people of Sri Lanka asserted their right to vote and their faith in democracy. In fact, all communities united in electing President Maithripala Sirisena, who promised them a united new Sri Lanka in which ethnic, cultural and linguistic diversity is respected, celebrated and valued. They chose a leader who would fulfill their aspirations of strong and independent democratic institutions, freedom of expression, the rule of law, good governance and the promotion and protection of human rights. In doing so, they rejected outright a regime under which the rights of the individual had been violated with impunity for almost a decade. Within days of being elected, the government, carrying out its pledge to ensure media freedom, unblocked websites that were blocked, lifted restrictions placed on foreign media personnel visiting the country, enabled journalists to travel freely to all parts of the country, and invited all media personnel living in exile to return back to their homes. Human rights activists, media personnel and civil society groups are once again free to engage in their work without fear of intimidation or harassment. The NGO Secretariat, which was previously under the purview and the watchful eye of the Ministry of Defence, was shifted to the Ministry of Policy Planning and Economic Affairs. The government will work with civil society groups and taking their views on important issues into consideration. On the first Independence Day ceremony in Sri Lanka, since the election, on the 4th of February, the government, departing from previous practice, acknowledged past tragedies that had taken place in the country and emphasized the urgent need for healing and unity. The government also made the declaration of peace, paying respects to the citizens of the country of all ethnicities and religions who lost their lives due to the tragic conflict that affected the country for over 3 decades, and to all the victims of violence since independence. A commitment was made to ensure that never again will the country be allowed to be traumatized by the shedding of blood of her own citizens. Just days after assuming office, the President replaced the former military governors of the northern and eastern province with 2 senior former civil servants. This set in motion the process of strengthening civil administration in these provinces, including cessation of military involvement in civilian activities, review of high security zones and releasing of land for resettlement of the internally displaced. The Cabinet of Ministers has already identified and approved the release of 1,000 acres of land from the high security zone. And the UN country team, which includes UNCHR, is in active discussion with the Ministry of Resettlement and other relevant entities to work out resettlement plans for the internally displaced. We urge the international donor community to extend assistance to this important program. The bill on assistance and protection to victims of crime and witnesses, which was delayed for over 5 years, was also passed unanimously by the Parliament on the 19th of February this year. Mr. President, the end of terrorism in May 2009 during the previous administration, though not without cost, was a necessity without which the restoration of human rights and equitable and sustainable development of the nation could not be achieved. However, with the government at that time choosing to operate with a sense of impunity and triumphalist approach, opportunities for reconciliation and restoration of human rights suffered. The historic election of 8 January this year that marked the end of that regime has now offered Sri Lanka an unprecedented opportunity to fulfill human rights objectives and work on achieving reconciliation. The government has already undertaken to review the cases of individuals in detention. Discussions are taking place with the ICRC to explore further areas of cooperation, including for the consolidation of the lists of missing persons and addressing areas of concern relating to the families of the missing. This includes obtaining assistance for psychological support. Recognize the need to rebuild trust, harmony and an inclusive nation to bring about reconciliation. The President also has set up a special presidential task force on reconciliation which will function directly under him. This mechanism would, among others, identify immediately problems that require to be solved and recommend solutions to achieve reconciliation. Discussions are also already underway to look at ways and means of expanding the scope of human rights in line with internationally accepted standards. Recognizing the previous government's failed attempt to implement the recommendations of the commissions that were set up at that time, including those made up by the LLRC, action is now being taken to explore steps that be taken in this regard. This includes examining incidents identified by these commissions as serious violations of human rights which warrant further investigation and a criminal justice response. The contents of the report of the OHCHR investigation on Sri Lanka too will be taken into account by domestic investigative and judicial mechanisms which we are in the process of setting up. The government has already begun discussions regarding the nature of local mechanisms that should be put in place for this purpose, including amendments to the existing law. Mr. President, it is significant to us in Sri Lanka that the core theme of this high-level segment is strengthening of international cooperation in the field of human rights. As an island nation located in the Indian Ocean, midway between East and West, records dating back several thousand years indicate that Sri Lanka has always maintained contact with the outside world. The last few years when Sri Lanka moved away from this cooperative approach was an aberration. It was not in keeping with our nation's interest or with our nation's character and personality. We are firm in our belief that to be successful, the journey of reconciliation and accountability is one that the people of our country must embark upon on their own. We do possess the competence, the skills, and the human resources required for this purpose. But we recognize that in this journey, there is much that we can draw from the experience of others in the international community. We have much to gain from their advice, technical support, and assistance. It is with this sincerity of purpose that I reached out to the High Commissioner for Human Rights last month on behalf of the government to invite him to visit Sri Lanka at an early opportunity. I also requested for the Sri Lanka situation to not be discussed formally at the 28th session of the Council in the context of the progressive steps being taken by the government. I thank the High Commissioner and the President and members of this Council for the support extended to Sri Lanka by granting this request. Mr. President, the government will engage and work in cooperation with a range of international organizations and countries across the world. Our approach is to seek solutions to issues through dialogue, cooperation, understanding, and learning, and not through confrontation. In this spirit, the government commenced a dialogue with the government of South Africa last week to learn from their experience of truth-seeking. In fact, a delegation headed by the Deputy Minister of International Cooperation visited Sri Lanka for this purpose, where they met all relevant stakeholders during the visit. In fact, the government also has invited Mr. Pablo de Graaf, the Special Rapporteur on Truth, Justice, reparations and guarantees of non-recurrence to visit Sri Lanka for consultations. He has proposed to visit us at the end of this month. We also look forward to receiving the working group on involuntary and enforced disappearances. As you are aware, Mr. President, Sri Lanka is a party to all human rights conventions. We will work actively with the treaty body system and revisit and address recommendations made by them. Although the government has achieved much during its 48 days in office, there are many more hurdles to overcome, including bureaucratic lethargy and bottlenecks, entrenched mindsets resulting from the practices of the previous regime, and extremist elements that attempt to derail the government's initiatives, especially in the lead-up to the upcoming parliamentary election. For some of us, the changes that are taking place and the speed at which the issues concerning our people are being addressed may not be rapid enough. However, I assure this Council that the political will and commitment required for this purpose has not diminished in any way. Mr. President, the government is committed to this important and historic journey that we have embarked upon, which is critical for the realization of the aspirations of the people of our country. I urge this Council, the High Commissioner, our bilateral partners, international organizations, and also the Sri Lankan diaspora, all who wish our country to succeed, to trust us, have faith in us, support us, and strengthen our hands. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.